You've been listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1. The views and opinions expressed on this show by the host, its guest, or call-ins do not necessarily represent the opinion of this station, the staff, its owners, connoisseur media, or its advertisers.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Straight Talk. This is a very special edition because we are here in Washington, D.C. with our representative, Kristen McDonald, Rivet. Let's give it up for her. Give it up, Cyber.
Straight Talk on the road.
Straight Talk on the road. There you go. But it's so good to be here with you, and thank you for the invitation, for being able to come out and just to have this conversation.
Yeah.
It's been, you're all over the place. It's been a wild year already.
To say the least. Oh, you're talking about 26. Yeah, 25 was a wild year too.
But I just wanted to come, and I think that being here is a great opportunity for all of your constituents and everyone that's back home to really get a feel for what's happening, to be able to see you in your digs. Amazing story of the chairs here. Maybe we'll get to that a little bit later. But what do you want to say? We're just out the gate. I want to give you an opportunity just to speak for a second to everyone back home that you represent, that's voted for you, that are now able to see you finally get the claws out and do the good work.
Yeah, this year just has been a lot. Since I was sworn in a year ago on January 3rd, we are watching a lot of chaos and a lot of partisanship, fighting, and really, honestly, it took me back a little bit because I came to Washington and was sort of expecting a little bit more of. I'm so used to working in a bipartisan way, building coalitions, matching the community voices with the policymaking voices, and I sat on the floor for the first time and I thought, what is this?
We're the adults in the room.
Where are the adults? But what I do want to say, and I say this to everyone, that one of the things that was a really good surprise for me is most people up here are really committed, wickedly smart, patriotic, and want to do the right thing. But what we hear about back home or what's coming through in TikTok and other places, and that's probably less than 20%.
Yeah.
But it's a really hard time, and overwhelmingly in mid-Michigan in particular, people are afraid. The chaos makes them afraid, what they're hearing about what's happening across the country, what's happening in Minneapolis, and it makes people afraid. A lot of people are losing their health insurance. People are worried about paying their bills. And so in my lifetime, this feels like the most angst-ridden, a time when people feel most frightened and less sure of our future.
I would agree. I want to pull us back because you're getting to where we're going in just a second, talking about some of the issues that are surrounding you, right? I want to pull this back and just have a little bit of fun. I want to talk about your first day when you came in for your training. I had a very interesting conversation. You came in, you win the award. I mean, you win the position. You're elected to this position. They bring you in. I'm sure there's training. How do you get prepared from going from state level politics to you're in the big leagues now?
The big leagues and a million details. So, I won in 24 on a Tuesday. That Monday, I was in DC at orientation. And I had, my chief of staff in the state Senate, who's now my deputy chief here, and my now chief of staff, the three of us came together. But here's the thing, that campaign was hard. I don't know if you remember, but that was hard. And we worked, I'm actually pretty well known for how hard I work, but I worked myself into, I went to orientation with a fever of 102. I was so sick.
Wow.
I was so sick. And so we showed up, and it is a full week through the weekend of everything from picking the furniture in your office, where your office is going to be, hiring your entire staff, setting your office budget.
In a week?
Oh, yes, you're immediately,
Wow.
and, kind of walking around, they put us in a hotel. All the freshmen were in one hotel here in DC. Security surrounds it. Nobody else stays in the hotel. So the first thing you do is you kind of pull up, and they got the dogs sniffing your luggage, and you realize, well, this is something very different.
Yeah.
And then Hakeem Jeffries was the leader, Democratic leader of the House, held a dinner for us, and it was beautiful, candle dinner in Statuary Hall.
Okay.
And so it's in the middle of the Capitol. It's beautiful, all the marble, beautiful marble statues of all of the greats that have come before us. And so being in there and realizing, whoa, right?
This is something different.
This is something different. This is something different. And I was incredibly honored. He asked me to deliver the opening prayer.
Okay.
And you know how important my faith is to me.
Absolutely.
And I did that, but then after, he opened up the doors to the House chambers and let us walk on them for the first time.
Wow.
And listen, I grew up in this little tiny farm town. My sisters and I are the first of both sides of our family to go to college. My parents grew up in households that were so poor.
Yeah.
No other way to say it. They didn't have indoor plumbing. And here I am in one generation, walking on the floor of the U.S. House as a member. And it was, I can't even describe the feeling to you.
What has been describing, you're talking about these amazing first-time experiences of everything that you've experienced in just a little bit over a year. What has been that one thing that you had to sit back and be like, wow?
Okay, I have two. Can I have two?
Okay, yes, you have to.
Thing number one was swearing in day.
Okay.
So I talk about my dad a lot. A lot of people, they know about my dad. He's 87. He's a construction worker, amazing guy. But after I was sworn in, he was in the gallery. And I turned and looked at my dad, and he was crying. And,
I can feel the emotion
Yeah.
right now. I can feel it. It's palpable.
Okay, so that was a big deal for me. But the other moment was a couple of months ago, and Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi
Yes.
arranged a dinner for just the freshman Democrats. There's a little less than 30 of us. And so we got this note from her that said, I'm inviting you to dinner with a special guest. We're having it at a private home here in DC. And so we all went over to this house, and we were standing there, and it was Barack Obama.
Wow. Wow. What?
It was Barack Obama. And it wasn't even dinner. We were in a private residence in the living room with him for an hour and a half while he just gave us advice, and we could ask questions.
Okay, what was it they're gonna wanna know, I wanna know.
Yeah.
What was the piece of advice that you took most to heart?
He is very much a servant leader, and he talked about how to stay on the things that matter, that are centered on real people.
Yeah.
And not get caught into what they refer to the DC bubble, which can feel really. And then we started talking about our democracy.
Mm.
And he was talking about and we have to be on guard. But when we think about the future of our democracy, one of the things that we need to be worrying about is that there are a handful of very wealthy men that control all the information we get. All of the information we get. Whether it's coming in through the TV, whether it comes in through social media. And this is not just in this country, this is around the world.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because I think in this social media world, everything, even this interview, it will be on the radio, but there is a social media component.
Yeah.
So many Americans depend on social media.
Yeah.
We now are living in a time when the wealthiest men in the world are controlling
Exactly.
social media, which means that they have a strong hold on the narratives that regular citizens get every day.
And they can strip out who they don't want you to hear from.
Why is that so important for us? You said to be on guard, and I like the way you said it. We have to be on guard.
Right.
Why is that such an important issue?
So think about where you get your information and how different that is from where you got your information 20 years ago. I know it makes me sound like an old person, but sort of I feel like an old person. But, when we are in a place where we have 24-hour news cycles, and the content is also basically determined by this small group of very wealthy men.
Yeah.
They're going to tell you only the stories they want you to hear, not what else is happening. And I always try to think about what would Watergate have looked like had we had social media in the way that we have it now.
Wow.
Right? Would that story have even gotten out?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I was when I first started running for office, which was just 3 years ago. I've been doing this very long. Feels like an intern, but it's just 3 years ago. I remember knocking on doors, and I knock on doors even when I'm not running because I just think it's such an important way to talk to people. But talking to people who would tell me these things that they believed that were so preposterous, and just I remember thinking, I can't believe this. How do you believe this? But then I have that phrase that I love, right? Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. And they're wild, conspiracy theories that are linked to controlling the weather, and a pizza store that's controlling the child sex trafficking.
Yeah. I was just thinking.
It's just so crazy. It's so crazy. But when you talk to them, they've gone from sort of, oh, that's interesting, to the next thing that takes them a little bit farther. I don't know if I believe that, but wait, here's 3 more things that are confirming that.
And they're going down the rabbit hole.
And now we've got AI that can come in and fabricate video and fabricate voices and faces. And so I worry almost every day about the way our neighbors are turning against our neighbors.
Right.
And at first it was the pandemic, which I think brought everybody inside into their own little spaces. And, that's when we first started seeing things like the spikes on yard signs. And, we used to be able to say, this is who, it didn't used to be, it didn't create hate.
Yeah.
It never used to create hate. But if you really watch your social media feed, there's a lot that's trying to get you to hate somebody.
Yeah.
So I ran this little experiment, and I started this different Twitter handle, and I set the algorithm. I tried to set the algorithm to hardcore Republican.
Okay.
And
you said you tried to.
I tried to. Eventually, it could find you out. But I followed people that I wouldn't normally follow: Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk, and you wouldn't believe the videos that I saw in the way they portrayed people like you and people like me.
Yeah.
And if that's all you see, then you're going to believe that. And that has implications for what's happening in our community. It has implications for what's happening around the world. And I'm very worried about it. And that's one of the things that President Obama told us to think about, told us to worry about. And it's a big deal.
I had an opportunity to meet President Obama a number of years ago. And so this is how our interaction went. We were standing there, and I'm taking a picture, and he goes, "What's your name?" I'm like, "Kareem." He goes, "Kareem, so you understand Barack Hussein Obama?" So it was a funny moment. But he has been having this conversation with America about democracy and what it means. As you look at being at, we would consider the seat of democracy for the world, what are you feeling in this moment with all of the chaos, with all of the squabbling, with all of the, as you say, breeding of hate? What are you thinking as it relates to our great democracy?
I try to stay focused on what is the positive and strong pathway forward. If we spend our time sort of steeped in what we think went wrong, why I went wrong, you know, I mean, it's important. I've been doing history.
Right,
That stuff's important.
Right.
But I think we need to start moving forward around American values, what those are, and how they, and what patriotism means, and how we create this world that is better for our kids. So I don't think I told you this, but my first grandbaby's on the way.
No, I didn't know that. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm excited. But you know, one of the things that really comes home to you, what are we leaving? What are we leaving for her when she gets here? What is here for her to, and I can't find anybody who would say, oh yeah, this is the world I want my grandkids to inherit. But we need to talk about we can't be satisfied with where our schools are right now.
Right.
We can't be satisfied with the gun violence in our community.
Absolutely.
But can we agree that we all love children and that we want our seniors to live, and to start in that space of what we agree with, and why for me that is part of the teachings of the Catholic Church. That's my faith. But it's also an American value that everybody gets a shot, and we don't abandon our poor, and we don't abandon our seniors, and that is American, and defining that as American, and moving forward with some big ideas.
So I want to ask you a question, because what you said was really interesting, and I'll say this: there has been what I consider a redefining of what is American, or an attempt to redefine what is American. What is patriotic? What is patriotism? What does it mean to be patriotic? I saw, a while back, Hakeem Jeffries and his extended filibuster, and someone's response was
glorious.
What an amazing show of American patriotism.
Yeah.
So for him, it meant something different.
Yeah.
I want you to define, when you think of patriotism, when you think of what it means to be American, what defines us, how would you define that?
I'm going to actually put it within a frame of freedom.
Okay.
I've been doing this. This is how I've been talking about it for years. But freedom in this country means a lot of things, right? But economic freedom is one of them. You get a shot, and if you work really hard, that means you can support your family. That's what economic freedom looks like. And I think freedom also means that you have access to healthcare, and you get to make your own decisions about that healthcare. Mm-hmm. It means that your voice and the collective voice of the country, of individual people, is where the power is. That is an American democracy. That nobody gets silenced, and that everybody is treated equally. It's liberty and justice for all.
Wow.
And justice for all is a core American value. And that's who we are. It's not justice for some. Like I said, I got a degree in American history. A lot of us are watching the Ken Burns American Revolution, but when we are walking through the halls of Congress, we have to remember how much blood was spilled for us to have what we have, and that the flag isn't just it means something. So when we do things like limit access to justice to groups of people in this country, that's not an American value. That's not patriotism.
I appreciate the way you define freedom. I'm just going to throw it back at you, right? Before I ask this next question. You define freedom as everyone getting a shot.
Yeah.
By everyone having access, by having control over the things that matter to you, and that your voice can be heard. So giving a mic and making sure that mic is turned on. When you think about your definition of freedom, how has that kind of taken you into the stances that you've taken, the conversations that you've had, the requests and the initiation, drawing up legislation that impacts. How has that consideration of freedom impacted the decisions that you've made?
You know, I don't think, so I think at this core, it's control of your own destiny, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when there are economic and political policies and priorities,
Mm-hmm.
that means it doesn't matter what you do or how hard you work, you actually don't have a shot because the cards are stacked against you. That is not freedom.
Right.
And so I focus a lot on that. And, you know, I focused really the last 20 years of my life on this. We actually have to create a space that it's not only the wealthy that have the ability to retire with security. It's not only the wealthy that have preventative health care.
Yeah.
Only the wealthy that are able to have care for their kids before their, you know, child care or nannies. These are things that are increasingly harder and harder and harder. And in our neck of the woods,
Yeah.
that's most people. And we can fix that. But the other piece of it that I think is really important, that there are a lot of people who have lost faith in our political system, and it feels very extreme right now. But at the end of the day, there's not a person that's going to come riding in to save us all. The American people are going to save us from this.
Let's take a break right there. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with this on-location edition with Representative Kristen McDonald.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1. It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
We are back with Representative Kristen McDonald. I almost made you a senator, man. I don't know if that's next, but let's get the weight going.
Yeah, the president.
But this has been a great conversation. Sitting here in the center of history, the seat of democracy, you have been doing some fighting. I want to talk. We've talked a little bit about you and you getting here and your experiences and your thoughts, but let's talk about the work that you've been doing. When you ran for this position, I didn't realize how much my voice made a difference in that moment, but I took a stand. I didn't know who you were, but we've had some time. We sat down, we had conversations, much like we're doing today.
Yeah.
And I could hear your passion. I could hear your desire to really make a difference and your commitment to community. And so I said, hey, I know this is by an unpopular opinion in many circles, but I think that you're the one.
Yeah.
And so I was very vocal about my support for you. And now I see you doing great work here. Let's talk about that work. You came here running, picked up the tools to work, and began carving out your place and your seat in this work. Let's talk about that work. Let's talk about some of the things that you find that have been your biggest, I guess, feather in your caps, or the things that you are most proud of so far.
You know, we do, you know, I have to tell you that the first year felt like 7 years. So I just get flooded in my head when I think about it, because there's the work that we do here on the Hill. So very proud of, we've already gotten 2 bills to the president's desk, which seems, you know, small. Only 3% of freshmen get a bill to the president's desk from either party. So we've been able to do it, and they have been about the economic vitality of the Great Lakes, and it's making sure that our firefighters are protected from PFAS, and being able to get money for our local roads and bridges. So we work on some of those things that don't get a lot of attention. But we also work on the bigger things. This fight to restore the cuts to SNAP benefits, to food stamps.
Wow.
You know, when they came, I sit on the Agricultural Committee, which is one of the committees that it's the committee that has oversight over SNAP.
Right.
And, you know, Republicans brought to that committee a $300 billion cut to SNAP. And we fought it. We fought it like crazy. Now, eventually, that cut was $200 billion, and since then, we've seen, I volunteer at food banks, you volunteer at food banks. Always we're running out of food before we're running out of people in line. This administration has cut the general operating funds for our food banks, cut $1 billion out of our school lunch program.
Wow.
So there's all of these spaces where it's not just food insecurity anymore, it's actual hunger.
Yeah.
That I'm very, very worried about. So some of it is a battle that I might not win in the moment, but to be very vocal about it and to force people who are making those cuts to see the faces and stories of the children and seniors in particular that are going to go hungry as a result of it. And so there's that aspect of it that is really, really important.
I got a tough question, and it's tough because it's not what everybody wants to talk about. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
in this administration, I told you when I saw you come in into the environment that you came in, I was like, "You sure this is it?"
Yeah.
It was tough, but I've seen you come in. There has been a lot of bills and a lot of legislation that's come cut to things that social programming, cut to needs for homeless individuals, for the hungry, for seniors, cut.
Yeah. Everybody vulnerable.
Everyone's vulnerable, right? How do you make the decision? Okay, it's going to be 300 million.
Billion.
300 billion.
Yeah.
Let's make it 200 billion. I can vote for this. How do you make that?
I don't vote for it.
Okay.
I don't vote for it.
So my thought is, because at some point, some things you're going to kill and some things you have to kill, right?
Right.
And then at some point how do you make the distinction to be able to fight for something and knowing that it's not what you would consider your absolute best? How do you make that decision?
It's just rooted in our community and the people that I talk to. I'm here during the week, I'm home. As soon as the last vote is over, I'm on a plane and I'm home. And remembering that that I work for about 800,000 people in Michigan and what their day-to-day is and what their life is like. I think the hardest part, honestly, in the position that we're in now, we're in a triple minority. And I will fight really hard. And then I will vote no, and it's still gonna pass. And then my job is to see what I can do to help mitigate the damage, to help see if what we can do to make it easier, the impact easier, what I can do behind the scenes. Okay, so we just cut all of this. Where's that money gonna come from? Well, that's determined in the departments, and how do we have conversations there to see what we can do to lessen the impact? How do we tell the stories so that when we are no longer in the minority, we can fix these problems? But it's also really important. I've been ranked the most bipartisan member of the Michigan delegation. And that, that is something that can be a little bit controversial.
Absolutely.
Right? But also, it's through bipartisan work that I was able to save the Flint Registry, which is a database of every person that was poisoned as a result of the water crisis. That had to be done with Republicans to get that done. It's why I've been able to get bills to the president's desk, and it's why I've been able to deliver several $1 million back, including a fire station in Bridgeport and a Flushing Police Department, and more that we are about to announce.
Yes.
You got to be able to do both. You've got to attack when it's important, and you've got to be able and make a public case, and then you also have to roll up your sleeves and get to work. An applicant adult.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. So it takes some it's nuanced, and people people want you to be either here or here, and sometimes in order to get here, you got to kind of work your way through and have some conversation.
Like every other workplace in the world.
Okay,
and every other workplace in the world.
People who are listening to this would say, well, kudos first of all for being the most bipartisan of this contingency of folks that we have here from Michigan, because it's important. We send you here to make sure that you're getting the job done for Michiganders.
Right.
You use the term, and I want to make sure that everyone that's listening, because sometimes we just, you assume that we understand what you're talking about. and we at home assume that we know what it takes in order to do your job, right? We can do it better.
Yeah.
You use the term, you're part of a triple minority.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what that means. Explain what that
So
means.
the Republicans have control of the Senate, They have control of the U.S. House and they have control of the White House, which means, and what it.
How rare is that?
It doesn't happen very often. I should be able to know that off the top of my head, but I don't.
Right.
It doesn't happen very often, but it means that there are no Democrats that run committees. This White House does not speak to Democrats generally. His approval ratings are dropping, so he's starting to talk to Democrats a little bit more. But Democrats didn't get invited to the White House Easter egg roll. Okay, so it's that level of we do not talk to you.
Okay.
Right? Not even an Easter bunny's there, right?
Okay. Another level of petty. Okay.
Right, and it is, well, but you know what? You have to thrive in the circumstances you're in.
There you go.
And the important thing is to develop the relationships, because there's some serious problems in this country that we have to address. And if all I did every day is come here, scream and yell, call people names, and say no to everything, then that would be a disservice.
It sounds more like Parliament than our democracy.
Yes. Right. I mean, it's just, yes, it's really important to be able to move the needle, saving the Saginaw Social Security Office.
I wrote that down here.
Keeping that open.
What did that mean to you?
Would you rather me have more TikTok views or an open Social Security office?
No, I want an open Social Security office. I wrote that down. It's crazy because I was thinking about how important that office is to that county, to the region, that it represents. Why were you so passionate, and how much fight did it take you to keep that open? Because one minute they're announcing that it's closing, next minute you're on the scene, and then you're like, hey, it's staying open. What did that take?
Here's what's really important.
Okay.
I wasn't on the scene on my own. And I was on the scene with people in Saginaw who were writing letters and standing outside of the office with signs and talking to the media and telling their stories. When Tom Brubaker told the story of having lost his sight suddenly at 60 due to a stroke and what it would mean for him, that took courage.
Yeah.
But suddenly it's a face, not a number on a balance sheet. So when we have people tell their stories and are willing to do that, and then we get the media involved and we tell the story as loud as we can, that's how that happened. And it wasn't at one moment when we saw our office on that list. It was the years of work in the community and the connection and the muscle memory of how to work together. We're the only congressional district in the country that has a commitment from the White House not to shut our office.
That's huge. Mm-hmm. That's huge. I want to say this because many people say, okay, Kareem, you're having this conversation and you're obviously a fan. I'm a fan of the work that you're doing. But I'll say this, and I think that this is important as we continue forward. We initially sat down and there's a group of pastors, I remember. Was it the Panda House or something?
It was at the Panda House.
You sat down and I listened to you and I was like, yeah, okay, here's another one coming through with this story. And we had a couple other meetings after that. And I remember bringing you in and saying, Kareem, I want to see, this is going to be the first place I come.
Yeah.
And I remember you went in the seat, and the first place that you came was into our Straight Talk audience, into the studio. And we had this conversation. For many people, that may not mean anything, but I've seen politicians come and promise a lot of things and not deliver. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the work that you've been able to deliver. We talked about the Social Security Administration situation in Saginaw and all across the country, the SNAP benefit situation. So let's talk about food insecurity and putting food on the table for families. Let's talk about that work that you've been doing, because I know that's something that you really want to champion.
So, there's the part of, the mama me wakes up every day thinking about the kids who didn't eat the night before. And I hear it on the desperate phone calls that come into our office. So we're working at every level in every way possible. One of the pieces is through making sure that we reinstate the program that was basically local farm to our school, which is good for farmers, which by the way are really, really struggling right now. Yeah. It's good for our kids to be able to eat local food. So we're introducing legislation to change that. We've introduced legislation to help make childcare more affordable. essentially hunger is a money in pocket issue. And so if we can publicly hold people here to the American standard, that we don't abandon our children and our seniors when they're hungry, and just hold the mirror up to that. That is part of it. But also we have to look at ways that we can reduce the tax burden. I'm working on reintroduction, because I introduced it at the state right before I left. I'm introducing it here as well, a working families tax credit that expands the earned income tax credit for people with children.
Right.
And helps with a monthly check, much like what we saw in the pandemic. And then making sure that programs like Head Start, where kids not only are learning and nurtured, but they have the ability that they eat at Head Start as well. All of these pieces have to work together. I'll call back to our values, and that's the kind of work that I'm spending my time legislatively.
I think that's amazing work to be done. I'm also thinking, as we have this conversation, I'm like, wow, we have to have the conversation about what's happening in Minnesota, the conversation that's happening in California. ICE has been around. People don't realize that ICE was not something that was just
created after 9/11.
Yeah, so it was created after 9/11. It's been around for a while, but the way in which we see it operating and being utilized. What do you say, because Minnesota, they're our neighbors. What do you say to Michiganders who are at home, to those individuals who may be here on a green card or a visa or something? What do you say in terms of how you're going to fight to protect American citizens against the invasion of ICE? It sounds crazy, but I can't think of a better way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not an open borders person. You know, I think we need to protect. I know you are. Right. I know you're not. And I think that people who are here and have committed a dangerous crime, and they're here and they're undocumented, should be deported.
Absolutely.
Right? Most people agree with that.
Yeah.
When this new wave was launched by the administration, and then Kristen came in and they said, we're going to get the worst of the worst. You remember that? The worst of the worst. And we're going to make our community safe. This is not making anybody safe. And what we have seen are tactics of people that are being dragged out of their cars, not identifying themselves, the mask. It's nonsense, and the very real impact of that is what we're seeing in Minneapolis. In this space, this time, in this moment we are in the world, all of that gets documented. Right. Everybody has seen all of those videos. And honestly, I just really believe that Kristen needs to be fired, and there needs to be, from my standpoint, it has to start with Kristen fired. We need to completely retool ICE. We need an agency that does this work. Right. But it needs to be retooled. And then all of the people that have been hired in the last year need to be retrained. So retool, retrain, and here's the thing that's getting lost in the conversation. We actually have to insist that Republicans come to the table and work on building an immigration system that actually works. It can take anywhere from 10 to 20 years to get citizenship. And the people that are being picked up in interviews when they're trying to do the right thing in the system, and they still get picked up and detained and sent somewhere in the country and their family doesn't know where they are, that is not what anybody voted for. Right. So there are things that we can do, and I voted no on the Homeland Security budget yesterday, and I voted no on it the week before, and what we're asking for isn't unreasonable.
You said the phrase, that's not what anyone voted for. I want to key in on that. That's not what I voted for. How many times have we heard that, right? Yeah. Okay, so buyer's remorse is sitting in for many people. For many, you talked about approval ratings of this administration going down. That's not what I voted for. To those Democrats, those independents, who said, at this time, we believe we're going to vote for, Donald Trump. Yeah. buyer's remorse is setting in. They're feeling this is not what I voted for. Gas prices, they are what they are. The price of eggs, the price of milk, those needs that we need to put bread and butter on the table.
Yeah.
What do you say to all of the Americans, not just Michiganders, but what would you say to all Americans who are experiencing that feeling? What can be done? Once they're in, what can be done?
Yeah, the price of eggs is interesting. The very first bill that I introduced was to lower the cost of the price of eggs.
Okay.
And we actually were able to pass it and make a, it's moving through the system.
Yeah.
It takes forever.
Okay, yeah.
And, first of all, shame is never motivating anybody into positive action.
In case you heard it.
Right. Hot take from Kristen. We vote every 2 years.
Yeah.
And we vote for people to represent us. But we didn't vote for, then they work for us when they represent us. So it's not, if we bury our heads and say, it's so broken, there's nothing I can do, it will never get better. And I actually believe that watch the actions of what people are actually doing. So the president's approval ratings are dropping.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, oh my gosh, it feels like almost every office is up in November. Right? But it's, again, individual voices coming together. And there's a reason why the framers of our Constitution had elections coming as often as they do. It's the opportunity to express your voice, but it's also joining local coalitions, connecting to community members, and also start changing the culture in the community about how we look at politics. We can have differences of opinion in our politics, and it doesn't mean we're enemies. And if all of us just agreed to opt out.
I need you to say the last piece again. We can I need you to look at the camera and say we can have
differences of opinion about our politics, but that does not mean we are enemies.
That's the message. We are in such a divided state of affairs as it relates. You talked about neighbors. Michigan is, I was listening to someone the other day, they were talking about they love the Midwest. They're international.
Yeah.
They're like, they love the Midwest. I was like, you love the Midwest. But then they began to talk about.
Especially in February.
Right. It's negative 18 out here.
Right.
But they were talking about the sense that there's a shared sense of value, that there's community, that neighbors actually like each other.
Yeah.
When you think about your hometown, when you think about Michigan, what do you think of most?
Okay, so I have a story about this, and I've told it before, but when I was pregnant with our last son, he just turned 16 last week, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
He was late. So I was gigantic pregnant, and I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and went to Meijer to do grocery shopping because we had 5 other kids at home. We always needed food. In that time, 3 separate people, 3 separate times, helped get something down off the shelf, helped me put groceries in my cart. One person even walked out, this is January, walked out with me and loaded my groceries for me, and none of them I knew. That is what I think about in our community. I don't know whether they're Democrat or Republican, and they didn't know that about me either. But what they saw was a almost forlorn, very pregnant woman trying to do these things. And everybody has a story like this. This is who we are. This is how we care for one another. A political flag in your front yard doesn't change that. It's still who we are.
That's what makes us Michigan. Time flies so fast. I'm going to have to end right now, but we're going to continue with a little bit of social media banter. We'll have some conversation. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Take care of yourselves and each other. God bless you. Grace and peace.
You've been listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1. The views and opinions expressed on this show by the host, its guest, or call-ins do not necessarily represent the opinion of this station, the staff, its owners, connoisseur media, or its advertisers.
It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
Okay, so Kristen, this is a little bit after the set. I got a question that as you were talking about family, I know how connected you are to family. You tell your stories about your kids, your dad, the community. Being away from home being soccer mom, how do you manage that? For all of the women out there who are saying, listen, this job has the potential to take me away from home, how do you manage that?
It's really hard. I mean, do you want,
No, for
maybe
real.
I should just not even, but it's really hard and it can be really lonely. So I will, you know, I miss games and, but my youngest son and I FaceTime almost every night, around 10 o'clock. And, you know, I don't know if you have a teenager, anybody's got a teenager at home. When you FaceTime a teenager, you usually only see half their face.
Or half the ceiling.
Half the ceiling. But, you know, sort of when I decided to do this specifically with him, I said, he really wanted me to run for Congress. And he was one of the loudest, yes, you should do this. But I said, you know, if I'm going to do this, you have to be willing to talk to me on the phone because teenagers don't like to do
Right.
that. And, you know, this is something you do not to get a title. You have to have a principle driving you for why it's important because there's a sacrifice that comes with it. You know, my ride to work is an airplane. And, you know, it's very busy. I'm scheduled usually from 8 in the morning until around 9:30 at night, constant. I talk to my husband in between those times. So, you know, I may talk to him 3 or 4 times a day when I'm walking from one place to the next. There's a huge burden on him because he's, you know, soloing it most of the time. And, you know, I love my community. So I'm away from it way more than I want to be. But I really think that this is a moment in history that we all have to stand up in whatever way we can because the country just feels really fragile right now.
You ended that with saying this is a moment in history. It just happens to be Black History Month as well. And as you were talking and you said the word history, it kind of conjured in my mind. You asked me to come and have this opportunity. So we sat down and we negotiated this opportunity. I didn't think about the time or even the brevity of what this represented. I'm coming from your district. You could have had one of a million different people have this opportunity. But you reached out and said, hey, let's make this happen, Kareem.
Yeah.
Why is equity and equality and access for all so important to you?
I spent most of my life working in that space and in all kinds of different ways. And I just don't think any of us are free unless all of us have the kind of freedom that we talked about. But it's also, for me, generally rooted in kids. And when you understand that you can walk into a kindergarten classroom and predict what they're going to be when they're 20 based on how they're treated when they're 5, and the responsibility we all have, that means that every 5-year-old has a path to greatness. And I've been in too many places in too many neighborhoods with kids who didn't really have a shot, and heartbreakingly a lot of them do it. And we have to fix that.
At the heart of what you do, there is this continual rhythm, this continual conversation about kids, about kids having access, having opportunities, food on the table, having an opportunity to have a bright future. When you look at and think of the kids that are in your district, what are the things that you find most important to fight for?
The basics, education, food, housing, safety. That should not be something that only some kids get in this country.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy. But I gotta tell you, you know, right before you got here in my office, we get people that come in and out of the office all the time. And sometimes they make appointments and then sometimes they don't. And this group of amazing kids from Bay County, they're high schoolers.
Yeah.
We're here to advocate, I think that there were 15 of them, to advocate for money for prevention, particularly around youth access to alcohol and tobacco. And they were in their very nicest clothes, and they had prepared what they wanted to say to me, and they had concrete asks and concrete suggestions. And, you know, I'm not sure that at 14, that would have been something I would have been able to, you know, get the courage or have the organizational skill to even do. And you could tell some of them were scared and uncomfortable, and they did it anyway. And so when you see just things that we can all do in our daily life that just changes things a little bit, giant impact that has in the life of a kid, and what that means in the long run. I mean, you know this, of all the work that you do with kids, it really matters, and it matters not just to the individual, but has all these reverberations, not just in the future, but in the present day in the community.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this, and I think it would be so cool to get a group of kids and to do a job shadow. I know that you're super busy, but we could work with your staff, all of the staff, and get a group of kids come in and we do a job shadow. And on a day when you're not so busy, we'll make it work. And well, you give them a tour of the Capitol. I think it's one thing for families to bring kids here, but when leaders that are fighting for the community have that opportunity, it just means something different. And so I want to thank you for this time and this opportunity to be here with you. But I want you to just turn to that camera over there, and I just want you to share just what's in your heart, what you're hoping for. When you think about your Michigan, your constituents, what is it that you would like to say to them?
We all have to do this together. And I know a lot of people are frightened, and things seem chaotic and crazy and out of control. But we know how to move our schools so that every kid can read and do math when they graduate. That's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to think that you can get a job, one job, and get to the middle class. It's not unreasonable to think that you can pay your electricity bill. We can do those things, and we can do it when we come together. So if people are telling you that in order to get that, you have to tear other people down, that's not the way forward. The way forward is that we do this together in community and remember why we love each other and what we're working for. And, like I said, as the American people, we come together and we fix this. We don't let people tear it down.
All right, so I want to thank you guys for always tuning in to Straight Talk. I want to thank you once again, Representative Rivet, for being such an amazing politician, a constituent, fighter. You're continually with the gloves on. So we wish you well. We're praying for you and the work that you have to do with this administration. But we want you to please stay connected so we can keep our community updated with what's going on. So this coming fall, is this another year that
it is. I'm up for re-election.
Okay.
Every 2 years.
All right. So we got to get out there, do the work, continue to make great things happen. Because as she said, we got to do this together. Thank you guys all. Gracie.